The plot begins with Ray, a guy who clearly thinks the Bible is some kind of Swiss Army knife, burning a page from it to make ashes and draw on the wall. His ever-helpful cellmate warns him that someone plans to attack him in the yard the next day. Ray, not exactly a fan of surprises, decides to strike first and demonstrates action movie-worthy fighting skills, taking down 2 inmates without flinching. The guards, unimpressed, take him straight to solitary. There, with his trusty Bible, Ray observes the guards' routines, including their smoking breaks and the use of the keypad lock. He also starts making wet toilet paper balls, storing them in the toilet paper tube. In a move worthy of MacGyver, he extracts a plastic sheet from a milk carton and times the guards' distractions. Outside, a mysterious woman leaves a car in the prison parking lot and walks away as it explodes. The guards rush to evacuate the inmates, only to find that Ray has vanished like a modern Houdini. The fire truck arrives, revealing Ray disguised as a firefighter, escaping in the vehicle driven by his friends Hush and Abigail, who orchestrated the explosion. They drop him off at a roadside store, where Ray uses a coin to make a call, saying only showtime. Soon, he is surrounded by police and arrested again. But Ray, always with a trick up his sleeve, remains unfazed. His contact, Lester, is already handling everything. In the background, Ray and Lester work for a government-contracted company to test prison security, and Ray has escaped from 14 of them. And about the car explosion scene, it's very reminiscent of one of those twists from the Coen brothers' Burn After Reading, but without Brad Pitt popping up out of nowhere. Seriously, Ray starts to explain how he escaped this time. He studied the layout and routines, discovered an unprotected fire garage, and made enemies on purpose to be sent to solitary. He used a plastic sheet to get the keypad's fingerprints and the toilet paper balls to keep the door slightly open while testing combinations. At the right moment, he rewound the security cameras, used the ventilation ducts, and escaped in the fire truck. However, the real challenge arises when the CIA offers him $5 million to escape from a new secret prison. Ray accepts, despite Abigail and Hush's apprehensions, and is given a new identity as an explosives terrorist named Portos. In New Orleans, his friends convince him to wear a tracker, which is soon discovered and removed by the kidnappers. When Ray wakes up, he's in a helicopter where a guard named Drake decides to make a not-so-friendly demonstration by throwing a prisoner out of the aircraft. He wakes up again in a futuristic prison with plexiglass cells suspended in the air and masked guards. The situation gets even stranger when Ray discovers the warden isn't who he expected. While observing the other inmates' behavior, Ray is approached by Emil, a former noble thief who tries to befriend him. After a series of strategies and some organized chaos, Ray and Emil end up in the isolation area where Ray starts working on his escape, using toothpaste and heat to loosen the rivets. What he didn't expect was to discover that the prison is inside an oil tanker in the middle of the ocean. In this film, Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger team up to create one of the most unlikely action movie duos. And a practical tip is that if you find yourself in Ray's situation, don't try to pass yourself off as a terrorist to get into a secret prison. Instead, you might try a simpler and safer method, like being a law-abiding citizen. An interesting point is Ray's ingenuity in using common objects to execute his plans. Meanwhile, Abigail and Hush inform Lester that Jessica's payment has been frozen, but Lester, always one step ahead, says he's already talked to her and everything's under control. After solving the water problem, Hobbs discovers the rivets in Ray's box and starts to suspect. A call reveals that Lester has been in contact with Hobbs from the start and that Ray has a secret identity. Lester asks Hobbs to keep Ray locked up forever and asks for information about Mannheim, as banks worldwide are after him. Hobbs mentions that Emil might be working with Ray, and Lester gives the green light to break Ray as well. Ray, trying to sleep, is constantly disturbed by a guard who bangs on the wall to keep him awake, and Ray returns the favor with a morning beating. This cycle continues until Ray is so weak he can barely move. Emil, ever the motivator, gives Ray inspiring speeches, and eventually, Ray shares his sad story of how a criminal he captured killed his family. In the following days, Ray studies the guards' routines and starts identifying useful habits, even naming the guards based on their body shapes. To initiate an escape plan, he needs to know their location. So Emil helps by stabbing Ray, who is taken to Kyrie's office for stitches. Ray takes the opportunity to steal some items from a tray, and later, Emil gives him a pen and glasses from a prisoner, which he turns into a sextant to determine the location through the stars. Who knew a former prosecutor was also a disguised MacGyver? Drake and Hobbs notice strange movements on the security cameras, and Hobbs interrogates Ray, who hides the sextant before being taken to a new section. Ray lies, saying he can get information about Mannheim from Emil. After Ray is returned to the common area, Emil hands the sextant to Javid, promising to help him escape if he cooperates. Javid, in turn, informs Hobbs about an escape plan in exchange for permission to pray outdoors, a key piece in Ray's plan. With the coordinates, Ray concludes they are near the coast of Morocco. Pretending to be sick, Ray goes to Kyrie's office and, with a secret passage in the Hippocratic book, convinces Kyrie to help. With 24 hours to escape, Javid starts a riot, distracting the guards while Ray, Emil, and Javid take down the few guards around and grab their weapons. A gas bomb launched by the guards allows them to escape unnoticed. And so, our unlikely trio is on their way to freedom, or so they think. Ray disables a camera to cut the ship's power, and the guards close the exit, forcing them to find another way out. After a series of shootouts, Javid is wounded and heroically sacrifices himself so Ray and Emil can continue. Ray faces Drake in the engine room, culminating in an epic fight that ends with Drake falling to his death down the stairs. Shutting down the generators, Ray allows Emil to reach a helicopter that arrives shooting. Hobbs activates the systems, and water starts filling the tank where Ray hides, but he's expelled into the ocean before drowning and is rescued by Emil. A final shootout blows up oil tanks, killing Hobbs, and the helicopter leaves Ray and Emil on a Moroccan beach, where they are met by Jessica, revealing she is Emil's, Mannheim, daughter and that Lester betrayed everyone. In a twist, Lester, trying to escape, is captured by Hush and wakes up in a box in the middle of the ocean, ending his journey as a potential crime boss. This movie was originally titled The Tomb, and Stallone trained in boxing and fighting for the role. Now tell me, if you were in Ray's place, what would be your first step upon discovering you were in an inescapable prison? Stay well, folks, and I'll see you in the next video.
And I gotta tell you, it was perfect.